Here we go. All right. So my name is Marian Kelly. I am an Assistant Chief of the Crystal Lakes Fire Department, and we're here to talk about evacuation. This covers things that are specific to Crystal Lakes. It also covers general evacuation advice. So some of this will apply to all of you, some of it will only apply to some of you. So I always start by talking about our fire department because a lot of people, even inside the community, don't necessarily know much about us. We're all volunteers, all local property owners. No one is paid for their role on the department. And we have approximately at any given time about a dozen firefighters and a dozen special duty responders. Our special duty responders are a logistics crew. They do traffic control. They lead people up to addresses inside Crystal Lakes because we do have people respond from outside Crystal, and it's really easy to get lost up here. So our special duty responders are people who want to join. They want to help with the fire department, but they don't feel comfortable doing something like pulling a hose or digging fire line. And it really helps us to have them because anything they're doing, it frees up other members of the department to do the pulling the hose, digging the fire line thing. We have 3 EMTs and 4 EMRs right now. An EMR is one level below EMT. We're always looking for volunteers, no experience necessary. Very few of us came into the fire department with any pre-existing knowledge. We've all learned it basically on the job. And what I like to say is that the people who join us, they provide their time and their enthusiasm. We provide the equipment and the training. So what does our district cover? The district basically maps over the Crystal Lakes map with a little bit around the outside edges. That means we cover 5,000 acres. We've got 86 miles of our lovely dirt roads and about 1,600 lots, and we're about half built out. We also respond outside our district. National Forest and Larimer County BLM, so basically anything that's immediately around us, if there's something going on out there, we're going to be the first people there. And we'll take care of whatever's going on until Forest Service can get there. We also have mutual aid agreements with every fire department up and down the mountain, plus Larimer Emergency Services, Forest Service. What the mutual aid agreement means is if they call us for help, we respond to help out. No charge, we're helping each other out. If we call them, they come on up, they help us out. Same situation. And our primary mutual aid department is Red Feather because they're just right down the road. They're the ones who run the ambulance, for example. We don't have one of our own. That kind of program is too expensive for us to run. So we contract with Red Feather, and they come up automatically when we have a medical, and we both automatically respond if there's a fire in either district, that kind of thing. We also train together because we work together so much. So what are today's goals? My goals for you and hopefully your goals. What I want to do today is teach you a little bit about wildfire and how it works, so you have kind of a basis of understanding when we're talking about these things. I want to talk to you about making a plan, learning how to be prepared in advance for an evacuation, knowing when you should leave the area, knowing what you should do before you go if there is time to do anything before you have to leave, and know what to do to go when there's no time left. So we've got 2 levels here. We've got our voluntary evacuation, which is we're warning you and we suggest you get out. And there's mandatory evacuation, which is everybody out right now. And what you can do before you leave depends on which situation you're looking at. You need to know where to go when you get out of here, and you need to know what happens next. And that's what we want to cover. So first, as I said, I want to talk a little bit about wildfire. And the first thing you all need to know about wildfire is it moves quicker than you think. A wildfire can move 7 miles an hour through forest on flat ground. The rate of spread doubles for every 10% increase in slope. So the steeper it gets, the faster it goes. None of us are going to outrun a wildfire, even the people on the department who are actually in really good condition. So what I'm going to do is tell you just a little bit about wildland firefighting, like I said, to give you a base so you understand what I'm talking about as we move on. Wildland firefighters and wildland firefighting, there's a fire behavior triangle. That tells us what that fire is likely to do, where is it likely to go. These are the factors that influence what the fire does. And they boil down to what's burning, where is it burning, what is the weather doing to it. So we'll talk about each of those things just a little bit more. The first thing is fuel types. Wildland firefighters have 20, 30 fuel types they talk about. We only care about the extremes. We are interested in the light and flashy fuels. Those are things like grasses, bush, pine needles. They're small things that catch fire quickly because they are so small. They're light and gather in lots of places around houses and so forth. We also have our heavy fuels. These are things like trees and houses. From the point of view of a fire, a house is just a fuel. And the reason that we care about these two extremes is because of how they burn. The light flashy fuels, like I said, they've got a large surface area and a small volume, a small mass to them. So they can catch fire very quickly, they burn very quickly, they burn out very quickly. They don't burn too hot. They can still be extremely dangerous because of how fast they move. It is still a fire, it is still possible for it to effectively overrun somebody. Heavy fuels are the exact opposite. They have much more mass to the surface area, they take a lot longer to catch fire, they burn hotter, and it takes them a lot longer to burn out. So the weather is the thing that has the most effect on where a wildfire is going and how powerful it's going to be. It is also the only thing that's truly going to put a big fire out. We can contain it, we can control it up to a point, but until the weather changes and we get rain or snow or the wind pushes the fire back on itself, it's not going to go out fully. The wind is the thing that most often affects fire, and it's going to affect it the strongest. And we never have wind around here, now do we? Fires also can create their own wind, and that can mean exceedingly strange things happening like fire whirls. So the wind is the thing that is the most effect on the fire. So it's the thing to be considering. We also have topography. The main thing you need to know about topography is how slope affects it. Like I said, fire runs faster uphill. For every 10 degrees of upslope, the fire doubles its rate of spread. And that's because the flames are closer to the fuel. It's preheating everything in front of it and drying it out, and then it can catch fire easier. The reason this matters, first of all, fire can run uphill a lot faster than you can, so you do not want to have a fire below you. Even if you're evacuating through an area where it's below you, you want to get out of that area as quickly as possible. That also means that certain terrain features have a strong effect on wildfire, and those are all things that are slopes that channel wind and fire, like box canyons and chimneys, saddles, that sort of thing. Part of the reason this is helpful to know is, like I said, if you are evacuating through an area like this, you don't want to dawdle through there if you have any choice. The other thing is, frankly, from a point of view of how soon do I think I better get out? Is my house sitting in a saddle? Mine happens too, unfortunately. So I don't want to be there if the fire's coming through, because fire could be channeled right up that slope at me. So wildland firefighters, to protect ourselves, as soon as we go on a fire, the first thing we need to do is know what our LCES is. We need to know, if we can't see the fire, we need to know somebody can. Someone on our crew can see the fire directly. Those people need to be able to communicate with us. And also, we all need to be able to communicate with each other. Otherwise, having that information does not help. We need to know, what direction are we going to go to get out of here? What's our escape route? And our escape route cannot be running uphill in front of a fire. And we need to know where our safety zone is. That's the place where we can be, where we will be safe. Don't even need a fire shelter, we will be safe. And our escape route should lead to our safety zone. And we need to know all these 4 things before we can safely get started on a fire. And I'm telling you that because I think our homeowners, that you all also have LCES, that you need to be thinking about in advance. What are your lookouts? The lookouts for homeowners are things like paying attention to what the weather forecasts are, the conditions are. Today is much hotter than yesterday. It's much windier than yesterday. That's going to affect what might be going on, and it's something that to be aware of. It's your situational awareness. Have you heard lately that someone is saying there are red flag warnings, that there's a fire weather watch? The news is great about talking about these things. And that also is something where it's just like, have it in your brain. If something starts, it's not going to be good. It's going to move fast. What's the fire danger rating? All the communities up the mountain do have their fire danger rating signs. We've got two, one just outside base camp and one on the way in. Those are going to tell you what the current fire danger level is. We also have that on our website. So it's a way of keeping aware of what is going on around me. Also, we've got Larimer County emergency alerts, like your evacuation notices and so forth, and those we'll talk about more later. Also, just being generally aware of what's going on around you. Are you seeing smoke? Are you seeing fire vehicles going down that road? Now, anytime you see smoke during the summer, it's something to be noticing. But the other side of it is also if we are seeing, if we already know there's a fire, like during Cameron Peak, did the activity suddenly increase? Is there more smoke? Are there more fire vehicles going around? Just things to be kind of aware of as you move through your day. When I said you can tell a lot from smoke, these are two examples. Now, one of those, let me start over. I don't want to be near either of those fires if I have much choice in the matter. Now, generally speaking, I don't, and I'm going to be. But I certainly don't want our community members to be near either of those fires. But one of those is moving a lot faster than the other one is. It's the one with the black smoke. A fire that is not moving very fast has more time to burn up the fuels, and it ends up with less unburned fuel in the smoke. If it's moving fast, it is moving fast enough. It's not fully burning up those fuels, and you end up with a lot of soot and ash in the smoke. So when the smoke is black, the fire is moving faster. It's hotter, and it's more dangerous. So that can help you out with something like this. If you look at this smoke from this fire, again, I want y'all to leave before you see that. But if you're seeing that smoke, this fire is moving faster one direction than the other. It is creeping down that hill. It is running up it, which also matches what we talked about with topography. So that gives you maybe some idea. That's black smoke. That's a bad sign. So I'm going to start packing right now. I haven't received any notification to evacuate, but I need to be thinking about it. Or it's white smoke. I still should probably be ready, but maybe I'm not going to be panicking. So your version of communications. This is a combination of your communications out and the communications you get in. So a big part of your communications is telling your emergency contacts when you evacuate, I'm leaving now and I am taking this road, assuming nothing changes on my way out. And we'll talk about escape routes and so forth. It's also talking to us. When you evacuate, if you have time, wrap a white towel around the doorknob and put on a sign saying everyone is out. Because when we start going door to door to make sure everything is clear, that's the kind of thing that can speed it up for us. If there's a white towel on that doorknob, that means these people have already left and they have notified us that they've left. A sign saying everyone is out just confirms that for us. Your escape routes. Your escape routes are things that we're going to talk about right here. Your escape routes are things like having your evacuation plan. It's more directly related to your route in the sense of know what your options are. There are times we're going to tell you how to leave here. There are other times when it does not matter what direction, how you leave. You can go any way that works for you. But it helps if you already know how many ways you can get from your lot down and off the mountain. And also, how long does it take you to drive those routes under normal conditions? Because that creates a situation where you have some familiarity with the route you are taking, and you know about how long it should take. Because if there's heavy smoke or it's dark, it's already hard enough to drive around when you can't really see what's around you. If you are totally lost and have never been on that road before, it's going to be harder and scarier. Now, how long it takes you to take that route out on your own versus how long it takes to take that route out if you are in a crowd of people, all of them going the same direction, obviously are not going to be the same. But it at least gives you some baseline to work from. Regardless of what I tell you right now, when the time comes that you are evacuating, follow the directions of emergency personnel. And we'll talk more about evacuation routes and why we might not be telling you to go the way that makes the most sense to you. But the main thing is just knowing, as much as I am saying, plan ahead and have some idea how you could get out, because sometimes there will not be directions on how to do that. Also, whatever you had planned, that changes if the emergency personnel say, no, you're not going that way. Okay? And travel safely. Kind of get it in your brain right now. Just tell yourself, I have to drive carefully. I have to not speed. People get hurt a lot more often during an evacuation if they're waited late and they're in a panic and so forth. So, safety zones. Your first safety zone is knowing your community evacuation plan. That's what we're going to talk about today. You also need to know what your own evacuation plans are. And again, you're keeping in contact, that's part of staying safe, with both emergency services and with your emergency contacts. The best safety zone you have is to not be here. Leave the area and do so early if it looks like we're going to need to evacuate, if we've got a fire moving in. The safest thing you can do is not be here. So I've talked a couple of times about making a plan. So the first thing is they've done some studies after fire has gone through the area. So they know, for example, that people who thought about their plan in advance are the best at both surviving wildfire and handling what happened. Because they planned in advance, they thought it through, and they knew what to expect. The problem is 40% of the people in the wildland-urban interface, that is us, don't have an evacuation plan at all. And of those who have a plan, half of them haven't written it down. Now, why does that matter? It's not really solid in your brain if you haven't written it down. And having that plan and having it written down are vital because human beings aren't great at handling stressful, panicky situations. The best way for us to handle them appropriately is to have thought it out in advance and made a plan. Because when the push comes to shove and we are completely stressed out and instinct takes over, what it tends to do is our brain goes to that plan we already made. So that means it's really important not to say to yourself, well, if that happens, I am just going to run screaming, because you just made a plan. So don't make that plan. Make another one. Make one that you have thought out and written down. Talk your plan out with the other members of your family. Make sure everyone in your house, or anybody who's going to be in your house, visiting you or whatever up here, knows what that plan is. And everybody knows what they're going to do. If you have certain people, you need to plan on turning off the propane. Okay, well now we know whose job it is to turn off the propane. Whose job is it to go get the cat? That way you're not trying to navigate those questions when you're just running with adrenaline and are panicked about what's going on. What does your plan need to contain? I will talk in more detail about each of these items. Your plan needs to contain what is in your go box. Like I said, I'll talk more about go boxes. Where is your go box? When will you leave? Firefighters call this a trigger point. When the fire comes over that ridge, we are out of here. When will you leave? We advise that you do not wait until you get an evacuation notice to decide it is time to leave. What will you take with you when you go? Your go box, of course, but what else? What route will you take if no specific route is given to you? And that can be as simple as the way you always go down to town. That is fine. But just kind of have an idea. Where will you go once you get out of here? There are a variety of options. Some of them are personal to you, and some of them are created by the fire system when we have an evacuation. If you have pets or livestock, where will they go? Can they go the same place you are going? Do you need to make plans in advance for where they're going to go? Will you have everything you need to stay there once you get there? So, your preparation I'm going to talk about being prepared in advance. This is a combination of evacuation stuff and preparing your property. One of your preparation things that you need to do is know about your utilities. Make sure everyone knows how to shut your propane off. Your plan should include who's going to shut it off, but everybody needs to know how in case that person can't do it. Because we need your propane shut off before you leave if at all possible. That tank can become a hazard or a bigger hazard if the propane is still on when the fire comes through. The other thing is just to be aware of your electricity is almost certainly going to be out during a wildfire. Poudre Valley REA takes it down early on rather than risk having poles burned through and live wires on the roads, for example. So it is often going to be out during an evacuation. It's probably going to be out outside the evacuation zone too. So it's not necessarily appropriate to think, well, if my power goes out, I'm not going to be here anyway, unless you choose to leave when the power goes out, which is a good time to leave often. If you know you're going to need to stay, then consider getting a generator if you must have power for something in particular. The other way that you can prepare is by taking a look at your insurance. Verify that it covers what you think it does. Make a list of your possessions or at least take pictures around your house. We do have a class entirely on insurance. I don't know that we're going to manage to hold it this year. We're kind of shorthanded, and the guy who usually handles that class is not in town this summer. So the main thing to start with is just talk to your insurance agent, make sure you know what's covered, and to be aware that just because you had $500,000 worth of insurance on your house and its contents, and the house is gone, therefore all the contents obviously were gone, they're not just going to cut you a check for $500,000. You have to make a list for them of everything you owned to make up that number. So the more prepared you can be with that information, the better off you are later if you need to use it. With any luck, you're writing a list you will never need to use for anything, or you're taking pictures or a video. But it's something to be aware of and something to plan ahead for. The other kinds of preparation you can do is mitigation. Part of the reason I talk about mitigation as preparation is sometimes people are more willing to leave earlier if they're not worried about what's going to happen to their house. If you know you've mitigated as best you can, then just leave. I'd say just leave anyway, but it might make people more willing and able to take that step of stepping away. So implement fire-wise mitigation. Talk to us about what you need to do to mitigate your property. Clean up regularly around your property. Those flashy fuels, the grasses and pine needles, when they gather right around your house, right around your deck, they're a serious fire hazard. And they are an easy thing for you to remove, unlike perhaps cutting down trees. So also make sure you've mitigated along your driveway and along the road. That is an evacuation safety measure. You mitigate around your house to help protect your house. But you need to also make sure that it is possible for you to get down your driveway and for people to get down your road, even if the fire is effectively all around them. Hopefully no one's evacuating during those circumstances, but we have definitely seen videos come out of fires in California and other places where people are driving right through a flame front. And so the fewer things that are burning right along the road, the better everybody is. Also, yeah.
I don't want to take a lot of your time.
No.
I live way up, and there are some areas that we drive through that are very narrow and very tree-lined, and a lot of dead trees.
Yeah.
So I would anticipate that would happen. Would you recommend another route if possible, or?
Yeah, if there's an area that worries you and there's another route you could take, I would suggest doing that. I'm planning on doing that unless fire services are guiding you down that route. If we're doing that, then as to the best of our knowledge, that is the safer route for whatever reason. So, if you have a cistern, mark that. If you have other water sources, like we've got a pond on our property kind of thing, put a flag on it now so you don't have to think about doing anything with that later. We may or may not be able to get into people's cisterns to get water from them, but we certainly can't do it if we don't know where they are. There's no need to mark your wellhead. That's not something we can access water directly from. Yes, sir.
I noticed on this checklist from Napa, minimum of 2,500 gallons of water on site. That doesn't happen.
No, it does not happen up here. Yeah, some of the handouts that we have are coming from other areas. It's a variety of advice that people have put out, and yeah, in places like Napa, they have requirements that you put in a cistern, for example. We're not going to run into that. We are going to run into people who don't have a well, they just have a cistern, or they have a well that feeds a cistern. And so those we might be able to access. But we don't expect people to have them. Yeah, agreed. And yeah, come to one of our mitigation workshops for more detailed advice on mitigating your property. We also have that PowerPoint with me talking on our website under our community education page. So that's also something that people can access without having to come to one of our meetings. More preparation you need to do, and that is getting your car ready. You should have certain things in your car all the time during fire season. Those things are food, but keep it sealed. You don't want bears in the car. That's going to cause a whole different problem. Water, spare cash, a flashlight, spare leashes for any pets that you have, wet wipes or a roll of paper towels and a spray bottle of cleaner. That is because if you are evacuating through heavy smoke, the smoke is going to get into your car basically no matter what you do. It has soot in it. You can soot up the inside of your windshield. And so having wet wipes or spray cleaner and paper towels will allow you to clear that windshield. It is possible that you would be evacuating through heavy smoke even if you were evacuating well in advance of the fire, because the smoke can lay heavy over the area for extended periods before the fire is a serious threat. Keep your windshield wiper reservoir full. Same reason, that's to get the stuff off the outside of your windshield. And keep your gas tank half, 3/4 full. If we're in the middle of fire season, just assume that you should keep it topped up. Some of these things are helpful to have in your car during the winter too, for a variety of reasons, including getting stuck. So now we're going to talk about your go box. There are two things you're putting in your go box, two kinds of things. They are the things that you must have later to help continue your life if your house burns down. And there are things that you will need while you are evacuating or while you are evacuated and in an evacuation center, for example. So the things you can't afford not to have later, those are things like your important documents, your birth certificates, wills, deeds, credit card statements, if you need that in order to get back to your credit card company and say, hey, I had these cards or I have these cards. Your insurance, and so forth. Some of these things are stuff that at this point we may have access to online. So generally speaking, think about the things that you don't have access to any other way than having that physical paper, or things that are going to be harder to replace later because you don't want to add the difficulty of dealing with bureaucracy to all the rest of whatever's going on. Extra set of house and car keys. That's not so much because you're going to need it while you're evacuated, and more because that way if you should misplace your keys when you're working to evacuate, you already know where there's another set. You don't have to think about it. Medications, spare glasses, things like that. If you're putting medications in your go box, trade them out once a year or every couple of months to make sure you don't have stale medications in there. Your personal medical information or records, that's for everybody who's with you. Again, this is something that once you're out and you can go see your doctor or whatever, you may have some access to, but the same kinds of things that you would put in the file for life and stick on your refrigerator so that emergency responders know what your allergies are, what medications you're taking, what your health issues are, those are things it's good to have with you in written form when you're evacuating. That way, again, if you have forgotten what medications you take, you've got it written down. If you've forgotten what health issue Grandma Moses has, you know what to do because you've got it written down. Cash, credit cards, checkbook, things like that you have spares of. Anything you have spares of, keep in that go box. Also, sentimental items. If there are things that you don't want to keep on a shelf, put it in your go box. You want to make sure it goes with you, put it in your go box. The things you might need while you are evacuating or once you are at an evacuation center are things like spare clothing, toiletries, pet food and leashes. Keep your pet carriers near your go box so you don't have to try to find them in an evacuation. Emergency tools, you probably won't have a whole lot of need for, but these are things that's not a bad idea to have on you or in your car. Spare chargers for electronics. Chances are pretty good we will have forgotten some of them. And for while you are evacuating, hats, bandanas, safety goggles, or safety glasses, that can help with the smoke if you have to go through an area of heavy smoke. Also make sure you've got your phone numbers and addresses for your emergency contacts. We're all used to having this stuff in our phone, but if you forgot that charger and your phone is dead, now you can't contact your loved ones who are waiting to hear you're safe. So have that stuff written down in your go box. It's just as a backup. Additional things you might add to your go box when you're getting ready to evacuate are things like your computers, your electronics, cell phones, again, chargers for electronics. Yes, that's doubling up, but just in case you forgot to put something in earlier. Additional cash if you've got something you want to take, and those sentimental items that you tend to have sitting out or on display or whatever that you want to make sure that you take with you. So what you want to do with your go box is you put it in boxes or plastic bins, something that's easy to handle, not too big, and put them near an exit where you can easily get it to a vehicle. It's not going to do you any good to have all these things in a box buried in the back of your garage. So if it gets buried during the winter, bring it out as soon as we hit fire season, which is to say in late May or June, so that you know exactly where it is and it is really easy to grab and stick in the car. As I said before, if you've got duplicates of things, documents that you want to take, or things that you don't use on a daily basis, have them live in the box all year round. Tape a list of what's in the box on the box. I guarantee you after 6 months or a year, you will not remember what you put in your box. So put a list on the box, what's in it. Put a list on the box of anything else you want to take with you. All that stuff, the things you want to add when you're evacuating that I mentioned a minute ago, figure out what those are now and write them down. Because again, your brain does not work well when you are dealing with adrenaline and panic. And during the Crystal Mountain Fire, which was the year before Hyde Park, one of the people who evacuated from there and wrote a book about her experience, one of her friends managed to get out without her computer, without her cell phone, but she did have with her a 5-pound box of kitty litter. She does not know why she grabbed the kitty litter and not the computer, because there's not a thought process going on there. So make a list of what you want to take. Don't assume you will remember it later. Do not assume that you will have time to grab those extra things, though. Be aware. I've got my list. I know what I'm going to grab if I have time, but I may not have time to grab this stuff. You might not even have time to grab your go box, depending on the situation. The people with the Crystal Mountain Fire, the fire came at them in the middle of the night. They had no warning. They basically got out with the skin of their teeth. So even if they had already been prepared and had go boxes, their chances of even being able to grab those were limited. So it's just something to be aware of. This is not a promise you're going to be able to grab this stuff. It just makes it easier if you have more time. So how do you know when to leave? There we go. That you are not going to wait, that when situation starts looking kind of hairy and you're feeling uncertain, that you are going to pack up and leave. When we had the Hyde Park fire, Wrist Canyon, the chief there basically has said that if they spent years telling their department, their community members, plan on being self-evacuating, plan on getting yourself out. And when they went to go evacuate, they found that 90% of people were already out. And that's probably why they didn't lose a whole lot of people to that fire. So be self-evacuating. Have your trigger point. As soon as you see that's happening, it's time to get out. Delaying your evacuation not only puts you at risk, it can put us at risk too. Because our job is life safety, we're going to try to save you. So It's better for all of us if you're not in a position where you are going to need assistance in getting out. Most evacuation deaths and injuries result during late evacuations. It's partly a function of the fire is right there, and so it's a bigger threat to you. It's also that panicked driving, and there's a lot of motor vehicle accidents during evacuations that could be avoided. So the later you go, the more you're potentially dealing with the people who aren't thinking very well and who are speeding or panicking. So when it comes to us telling you how to get out, we have a couple of ways we're going to do that. So first I'm going to talk, this is specific to Crystal Lakes, situations that call for evacuation. A fire is nearing Crystal Lakes from outside. A fire has started inside Crystal Lakes, and this is the reason that I talk about this one, dam breach. Because most people don't think about that one, but we do have Panhandle Reservoir up there, and it has a dam, and if that dam fails, then everybody downstream of it needs to get out. And like I said, most people in Crystal Lakes don't really think about that one, so I include it as, here's all the situations under which you should think about evacuating, and one of them has to do with water, not wildfire. Notification methods. We have reverse 911 that goes to landlines only. So it's automatic. If you have a landline up here, you are signed up for reverse 911. And I will be talking about everything except reverse 911 in more detail. Because you can't do anything about the reverse 911 via landline. That is, you're automatically signed up for. It will automatically happen. These other are things that we need to talk more about. We have LEDA or NOCO alerts, emergency notification. That is a different kind of reverse 911 call. And we will go door to door. We also have evacuation sirens in Crystal. So the specifics related to LEDA, and there are flyers on the table. LEDA is Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority. They're the people who handle 911 incoming and outgoing. They have set up something called NOCO Alert, which is a website. LEDA is also a website. There's two ways you can get into the system. It does not matter whether you go in through NOCO Alerts or LEDA. What you do is you go into these websites and you sign up. You say, I want to know about anything going on, emergency evacuations and the like, at this address. And I want you to contact me via this or these methods. You enter what way you want to be notified, whether it's your cell phone, whether you want a text, whether you want an email. And you can put in, there's a lot of space to put in numbers and email addresses. There's at least a dozen options there. So that means that you can set it up to notify everybody in your family if you want. I've got mine set up so that it notifies the people who live up here first, but then my sister down in Greeley, I want her to know if that's going on. So she's about 4th or 5th on the list. She will get that notification even though she doesn't need to evacuate. So it is a way that you can not only be notified yourself, but let your loved ones know. The main thing is if you put in, no matter how you've done it, when you get that, or if you get that text or that call, one of the things it will say somewhere in its automated message is to press a button if you received the notification. Tell everybody on the list, nobody presses a button to say I received that notification. Because as soon as it gets that, it stops going down the list. So if the first person on the list says, yep, I got the notification, nobody else on the list gets notified. So everybody just don't tell it you received the notification, and it'll keep calling down the list, and that way everybody on your, everybody you've signed up will get that information. Like I said, LEDA 911 and NOCOalert.org are going to the same system. The two websites look different. NOCO Alert has more information on it. It allows you can go in and take a look at a map that'll show you what the evacuation area is and stuff like that. So it's a more robust website. But if you've signed up with LEDA previously, you're still signed up. Although it's always a good idea to go in periodically and check and make sure that, yes, we all still have those phone numbers, for example. Even if you have a landline, still sign up a cell phone on LEDA or NOCO Alert. Because they haven't done a test in our specific area, but they have done tests in other areas that have smaller infrastructure like we have. We have a fairly small switching station for the landlines, and they know that what will happen is All those reverse 911 calls going to landlines, they're in the queue, they will get called eventually, but eventually is the operative word there. Because you got a traffic jam going on there. The system can only handle so many calls at once. When you put a cell phone in the system, that cell phone can get a call much quicker. It's less likely to be all jammed up it's got a more robust ability to handle it. So if you happen to have your landline and your cell phone signed up with LEDA, you're going to get that cell phone call before the landline call. And you want to get that call sooner rather than later. So always make sure you sign up your cell phone. Other notifications we do. We're going to send out that reverse 911. We're going to trigger that, call everybody who's signed up. But we know not everybody has signed up. Not everybody has a cell phone signal up here. So the next stage is going door to door. How exactly this works depends to some extent on whether Crystal Lakes Fire or Red Feather Fire is the one running the evacuation, or if, as with Cameron Peak Fire, we have a bigger fire coming from outside, and we already have Larimer County Sheriff's Department, and everybody is already creating an infrastructure to work with. With Cameron Peak, they knew what they wanted to do. They're the big authorities, so we ended up not doing things the way we have previously taught we would do it, because they knew what they needed to do to be safe. So they triggered voluntary evacuation and mandatory evacuation early, which is something we approve of, as we're at the end of the road here to some extent. And they also did not use our resources to go door to door. They reserved us for other activities, and they sent sheriffs and even SWAT team members door to door. So if we are running the evacuation, we are going to send 2-person teams to whatever part of our district is initially the most threatened, and they're going to start going door to door from property to property, checking to make sure that people have been notified, that they either got that call or they have otherwise. Now we've notified you, it is time to get out. Evacuation is mandatory by state law if the thing we're getting through is a mandatory evacuation notice as opposed to voluntary. But while it is a crime to obstruct us, we are not going to force you out. Sheriff's Department will do what Sheriff's Department does, but during Cameron Peak, they didn't force people out. It's effectively, up to a point, your decision. We would rather you not make the decision to say it is not. If we're saying evacuate, it's because it's not safe to stay here, either because your area is immediately threatened or because your ability to get out is immediately threatened. So we won't force you to go, but we are going to tell you it is time to leave. We will also leave colored streamers at the foot of your driveway. Larimer Sheriff's Department was tying things onto road signs and people's address signs. We have a whole bunch of washers with streamers on them. They are color-coded for our information to tell us whether or not someone was at that house when we stopped by. The only thing you need to know about it is please don't move them. You see colored streamers somewhere, just leave them. They're there for a reason. That's okay now, yes. Once it's well past, you can.
I'm new, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they ended up going through more than once, so there's multiple streamers in some places. So, the other thing that we absolutely hate having to tell people, we do not have the resources to help you evacuate. If you have a family member who can't get out of the house on their own, if you have animals you need to catch, if you have some valuable thing you need help getting in your car, we cannot stop to help. The people going door to door, their job is to notify everybody. And we've got 30 people on the department and 6,000 properties. Did I say that right? 1,600 properties. Thank you. Yeah, I knew I was off there. It's like there's a 6 in there somewhere. Yeah, 1,600 properties and about 30 people to do it. So, and we will, of course, bring in as many resources as we can get, but we don't have the time to stop. Our job is to notify everybody. So if you have a situation like that where you have something you're going to need help for, think about it in advance. Plan in advance for how you're going to manage it, who can help you with it. Now, I'm not saying we're just going to say, sorry, too bad, bye. We will report back to our command and let people know. And if the sheriff's department or if somebody has those resources to come in and help, you're noted. We'll figure something out as best we can, but don't assume that we can help you with your evacuation. If the situation is my husband went down to fish and I don't know exactly where he's at, one of the things we do is we drive by the lakes with our loudspeakers on and all the rest of that. So just let us know about these things, but we may not be able to help with them. And like I said, we hate to have to say that. Also, we have our evacuation sirens. There are 6 sirens throughout Crystal Lakes, and they are spread as effectively as they can be based on sound engineers and so forth. They cannot be heard in every part of the community. They are basically just the best that we can do. If the sirens are sounded, if you hear them going off, do not, please, call the station, call the association office, or anyone else to say, what's that siren about? Do leave. The reason I am saying that, I used to work in the association office, and every year when we set off the sirens as a annual test and an announcement to the community, we would get dozens of calls. Now, in that case, I appreciate that they called instead of panicking, but there isn't time for everybody to answer those calls. If you're hearing the sirens and you didn't already see something saying we're going to test them, leave immediately. There are 2 different sounds that the sirens will make. There is one that only plays from the pole that's over here between us and base camp, and that's a whooping sound, and that's that the dam has failed or is in imminent failure. And for that one, we only want the people in the floodplain to evacuate, and I'll talk more about how that goes. The other one is a wildfire sound. Everybody who can hear it, get out. I'm going to play those sounds for you. Let me see. There we go.
Tone.
It will continue
Alert
to repeat.
tone.
The second one is the fire evacuation. The first one was the dam. And that will continue to make that noise for 3 minutes. And then it will stop and we will have to reset them. The sirens have batteries. They are operated from solar power plus batteries. They can be set off a couple of times before they will run out of juice. So they will be set off maybe probably twice in a row at the beginning and then spread out to try to make sure we don't completely run out of power. So what to do before you go, if you have time. This is, I received a voluntary evacuation notice. That means that nobody thinks that I have to get out instantly, but everybody thinks it would be a good idea to get out very soon. So what you're going to do is start by preparing yourself. Stay calm and follow your evacuation plan. You made it for a reason, so now's the time to pull it out and do what you said you were going to do. You want to dress in clothes that cover you and are natural fibers, and closed-toed shoes. What you want to do is make sure that if things get hairy on your way out, you are protected. And you want natural fibers because man-made stuff, if it gets too hot, will melt and it will stick to your skin, and that will be not fun at all. Pull your car up by your house and park it facing outward. If your voluntary evacuation changes to a mandatory evacuation halfway through, you want to be ready to go, and you don't want to have to back up to do it. This order is the order I would suggest doing things in, because it's the best way to make sure you are ready, even if it changes to mandatory partway through. So you're going to park it facing outward, roll up your windows, and turn off your vent or AC. This is because fire brands, which are Big embers are created by intense wildfires, and they can be blown miles ahead of the fire. So you might not be immediately threatened by the fire, but you might have firebrands being blown into your area. If they get into your car, then you come out to evacuate and your car is on fire. This is not a good situation to be in. So you want to have your windows up so nothing can get in, and you want your vent or AC off so you're not going to suck, when you get started moving, you're not going to suck these things into your car. If you're going to pull a trailer as you leave, hook it up now. Do not wait. Get your pets and your livestock rounded up and ready to go. Maybe you're not putting them in your car just yet because you're not planning on leaving quite yet. But make sure that you have them all in one place so that you can easily get them. You don't want to be trying to track the cat down who's probably under one or the other bed when you need to be getting out right now. Load your go box and anything else you want to take in the car. Put in the things that are most important to you first. Again, in case it switches to mandatory evacuation, your situation changes and now you need to climb in the car and go. Again, this is if you have time. You can also prepare your house. You can do things that will make it more likely to survive before you leave. Close all your windows and all your exterior doors. Don't lock your doors. A lot of people worry about that because they're worried about looting or something like that. If we are telling you to get out, then there are going to be roadblocks preventing people from coming back in. So I'm not going to tell you you must leave your doors unlocked. If you're not comfortable with that, then that's fine. But if anybody who leaves their doors unlocked, it gives us the possibility of being able to potentially do more to protect that house or to use that house to protect ourselves. Fire doesn't just come through and destroy everything in its path. The flame front comes through, during which time all the firefighters have to be out because it's too dangerous to stay there. After it goes through, it will have left fires in a variety of places. Then we can come back in and start trying to put those out. Sometimes that means it will be much better if we can get into a house to attack something that's happening inside. Windows broke or whatever, and there's some fire inside. We can break down the door if we have to, but it is convenient to have it unlocked. Leave some lights on if you still have power. Like I said, chances are pretty good the power is going to be out, but if you do still have power, leave 1 or 2 lights on. For as long as the power is working, that makes the house more visible, especially in things like heavy smoke. That way we know we can be more likely to notice that it's there. Turn off all fans, all air conditioners. You do not want any airflow inside the house if anything starts, if any fires start inside the house. And close all interior doors. Same basic reason. The fire can more easily spread from room to room if the doors are open. If they're closed, even a hollow core door provides some protection and slows a fire down. If you have heavy drapes or shutters, close those. If you have light gauzy curtains, take them down. The heavy drapes or shutters could protect and keep some of the radiant heat and anything from coming in. The light stuff may catch fire. As I mentioned before, wrap a white towel around the doorknob. If you have time, leave a note on the door saying everyone is out. That could speed up our door-to-door. If you have to leave a vehicle behind, don't park it over flammable materials. Don't park it blocking the driveway or the road. Sometimes that combination is not doable. If it's a choice between parking it over flammable things or parking it in the middle of your driveway, put it over the flammable stuff. Because it's better if we can have access, direct access to the house, even if that means that potentially the car catches fire. Make sure all your windows up, same reason as before. You don't want the car catching fire any sooner than it has to. Prepare your property. Again, if you have time. High Park Fire, Glacier View was under voluntary evacuation for weeks. They had time to do this stuff. This is mitigation steps, basically. It's cleaning up the leaf and needle litters, getting it out from under your deck, getting it out of your gutters. This is some basic mitigation steps, and they are still things you can do even when time is short. If you have small propane bottles, like on your grill, move them away from the structure. That If the best place to put it where it's not among flammable stuff is the middle of your driveway, then go ahead and do that. Just make sure it's not next to your structure. Any flammable object that you've got on your deck or right up against your house, you want to move it away. These are things like mats, brooms, furniture pads for your outdoor furniture. All of that stuff is flammable. We don't often think of brooms and mats as flammable, but they are. Either toss them away from the structure or stick them inside. You do not want those catching fire on your deck, because it's possible then that that's going to be what catches your house on fire. If you can, move your patio furniture away from the house. If it's still on the deck, but just push it away from immediately around the structure. That's basically just trying to get it out of our way if we're coming back through later. If you have an outside faucet, not everybody does, attach a hose and charge it. That means run water until it runs out the end and then turn it off. Lots of ifs here, if we still have power, then the pump will still work for your water, and we might be able to quickly access water and use it to help protect your house. We will bring our own water, but the more things like this can help out at times. Don't leave it running. Don't turn on a sprinkler and have that running. That sounds like a great idea, but it could be hours and hours before the fire comes through, by which time your well has run dry and you've burned up your pump because you're trying to pump water you don't have anymore. So don't try that. That's just not going to help very well. If you're going to be here for a bit longer, if you're not prepared to leave right away, fill water containers, sinks, tubs with water. You want to do that before the power goes out and your pump stops working. Shut off your propane tank, turn off any generators, close all exterior vents. Dryer vents, soffit vents, all that. Anything that is a vent into your house, close it if you have the option to open or close it. If you have a metal ladder, lean it against the house. That's another thing the firefighters may be able to use to help out. If you don't have a ladder, don't worry about it. If your ladder's wood, don't lean it against the house. So, what to do when you go. This is, I don't have time. We have mandatory evacuation. We have been told to get out right now, or the sirens are going off. It's the same basic set of things, but it's fewer of them. They're all focused on you getting out. Stay calm and follow your evacuation plan. Dress appropriately for the conditions you might face. Load your pets and livestock. Load your go box, your cell phones, your money, etc. Roll up all your car windows, close your vents. Close all the doors and windows in your house. Shut off your propane tank. And if you have time, wrap that white towel around the doorknob. Nothing you own is worth your life. If you're getting a mandatory evacuation and you're hearing the sirens going off, that means by the time the sirens go off, that is out now, thank you. The sirens mean only one thing. The fire is too damn close, everybody get out. Everybody grab your kids and your pets and you go right now. I did not mention spouses. I hope we can all trust that they can make it into the car on their own. So. What might you run into when you're on your way out? Well, things will be on fire. Some of those may be vehicle fires. Natural gas or propane fires. Up here it's going to be propane. Burning houses produce a lot of toxic smoke. Most of the things we build with these days do not react well with the human body when they burn. So you want to stay inside your car. There may be down power lines. Probably if there are down power lines, the power will be off. It is safe to drive over them. Do not stop on them. Do not get out near them. Pets and livestock may be loose and scared and running across the road. Wildlife is going to be doing the same thing. And at that point, the fire is a lot scarier than you are. So just keep your eyes open. Motor vehicle accidents, as I mentioned, you have bad visibility. You may have panicked drivers. You need to be just keep a close eye out on what's going on. Someone may have crashed. Hopefully not in the route that we need to evacuate. Be alert. Drive carefully, unlike this gentleman. What if you were to stay? Either because you thought, well, I'll stay here and protect my house. Not the best idea. Or if you delayed a lot. It's a lot of the same stuff. We have vehicle fires, we have propane fires, we have downed power lines. We also have ammunition and household chemicals that people often have in their garage, in their basement. The chemicals, when they burn, again, more toxic smoke. Ammunition, when it's heated enough, will go off. If it's not in a gun, it's going to kind of pop off in two directions at once. It's not going to have all its force going down a barrel. So it's probably not like the house is going to shoot you, but you don't want to be close to something that has ammunition popping off. Toxic smoke for burning houses. No electricity up here, that means no water. So if you stayed, hope you filled some stuff because you won't have any water available to you. It will be very, very hot. Wildland fires burn 1,500 to 2,200 degrees. The smoke will be thick and dark and very hard to breathe in, and also full of toxic stuff you don't want to breathe in. It will be extremely loud. A flame front bearing down on you sounds like a freight train. It will be extremely loud. There will be high winds. Fire creates its own weather. We already have high winds up here often, and often that will get that much worse when there's a fire. And you have the ember storms. As we said, you have big sparks. They can be as big as your hand, and those are firebrands, and they can fly miles ahead of a fire. And they're not immediately harmful to us. The most they might do is create a spot burn on your skin, but it's not a comfortable thing to be walking around in. The other thing we often don't think about is the slurry drops. The air tankers that bring in what's called slurry, fire retardant. The slurry bombers can hold between 600 and 3,000 gallons of this. So the most common ones we get up here are the single engine air tankers, and those hold approximately, usually about 800 gallons. Slurry is a mixture of chemicals and water, and while the chemicals are not harmful, that means when it opens up and dumps its load, it's dumping 6,400 pounds. You really don't want to be under that. You should be okay inside a structure. You might not be so okay outside. So things that, and I do hammer on this because I don't want anybody to stay. I'll be honest about that one. I want everybody to go, I don't want to be in there. So, which is why I have this.
There he is.
The loudest thing there is probably that there's someone standing next to an engine that is running. And this would be after the flame front went through, but it's left a whole lot of stuff on fire. That is a propane tank. It got too hot and it's now venting. It's shooting flaming propane straight in the air. And I believe that's ammunition. Not a place that it's a good place to be, if at all possible. What if you aren't able to get out? For whatever reason, you can't make it out of the neighborhood. Get inside a structure. Stay inside your house. If you are driving down the road and you got overtaken, break into somebody's house. The heat of a fire will take 5 seconds to give you second-degree burns. That same level of heat takes 27 minutes to ignite a structure. You are safer inside because your house can withstand that heat for longer than you can. 27 minutes is more than enough time for that flame front to go past and to make it safe to exit the house. It would be in conditions like that, but you wouldn't have the bulk of the fire pushing at you. Dress in heavy natural fire clothing, all skin surfaces covered. Shelter in a room as far from the flame front as possible. The flame front is the direction the fire is coming from. If the wind's coming from that direction, that's where the fire is going to come from. Don't shelter in the basement. We don't want you to get trapped down there. Shut off all fans and vents. Leave on lights. Lie face down on the floor with a blanket over you. You're protecting yourself as much as possible from that heat. Don't wet anything down. Wet anything on you or near you or by your face. That can become superheated steam, and one breath of that and you're done. So don't wet anything down. You don't want the burns you're going to get if you do that. Do not leave the house until after the flame front is passed. The freight train moved on. No matter what is happening inside the house, until the freight train moves on, what's happening outside is worse. After that front passes, go outside, because the house you are in may possibly have started to catch fire, and you don't want to survive the forest fire and die in a structure fire.
Is it sound, you think? That
It'll get louder and louder as it approaches, and then once it passes you, it'll start getting quieter. So hopefully none of us ever need to know that one. So where are you going to go? Well, we're going to talk evacuation routes specific to Crystal, and the first one is, what about if we get the announcement that the dam is failing? Only the affected property owners should evacuate. Only the people in the floodplain. They're the only ones we want moving on the road. Everybody else, stay where you are, because we need clear roads to get the people in the floodplain out. If you're not in the floodplain, don't go to lower ground for any reason, even to evacuate. Just stay where you are. You're on higher ground. Even if you get stuck there, you're safe for now. We will get you out once it's safe to travel. We want to keep the roads perfectly clear for people needing to get out of the floodplain. Where is the floodplain? This is your floodplain. And the arrow is pointing to where we are right now. Just to give you an idea, if you're in Crystal Lakes, the area in red is the floodplain. And it is more dangerous on the north side of the river than the south. The south is steeper up from the river, and therefore potentially less in danger. Everybody in that area we want out, though. And those are the people that would get the reverse 911 through LEDA, and they would be able to hear the sirens from the mail shed over here. And the one over here is the only one that would sound, it would sound the dam evacuation alert. Evacuation routes are always going to be contingent on the emergency. Some communities have They know where their danger threat will be coming from, and they can set up an exact, here is what everybody does when we evacuate. Our threat can come from inside or anywhere around us. So we cannot tell you in advance what direction to go or how to evacuate. What we can tell you is what we will do and what we will help you to do. Normal evacuation routes will be used where appropriate. There are blue squares with white arrows on them on every road sign inside Crystal Lakes. That arrow points you to an evacuation route. It points you to, if you follow those arrows, you're going to end up out on 73C. It is not necessarily the best possible way out from wherever you are. If you have a way you prefer to go, and if we haven't told you what direction to go, just get yourself out. If, however, you get turned around or you got sent a different direction than you're used to and you're not sure where you are or how to get out, follow the arrows. Okay? Sometimes we're going to need to do alternate routes. We're going to have some reason we can't let you go out the way you normally go out. If that's the case, as much as possible, we will have traffic control personnel out directing traffic. We will also use alternate route markings, which look like on the screen, or we have a whole bunch of yellow ones with red arrows. And we can set them up to point the direction you should go. If you see one of these things where you've got a cone and an arrow, but there's nobody there, that is still the route you follow. Follow the arrows. As I said, alternate routes may be necessary. Why would we maybe need to send you out a specific direction aside from the fire is coming that way? Well, if, for example, we have a fire coming down from the northeast, we're going to need to get fire trucks in. They're going to have to go in that direction, more or less. Well, all of our roads are fairly narrow. Almost none of them are ones where you really want to meet a fire truck coming. So we'll send everybody out around the other direction. That way we have traffic one direction coming in with the big trucks and everybody else is going a different way. That might mean that the direction you are told to go is the exact opposite of the direction you think you should go to get out of here. If that's what we're telling you to do, we have a reason for it. So please do follow the directions that you are given. What else can we say about evacuation routing? Well, if we have a fire coming from any of these directions where we've got the red arrow, what way are we going to go to get out of here? The way we always go to get out of here. Take 73C south, right? What if the fire is threatening 73C? Well, anybody lower than wherever the fire is threatening 73C, go out the usual way. Otherwise, you're going to need to take 73C northeast. And that is not a good road. Depending on how recently the Forest Service or the county have been at it, it can be very potholy. It always has tight turns in it. So that is a road that I strongly recommend people try driving so that you know what it's like. It will take you out past 67J, which is the road that goes into and through Red Feather, and you can from there get on out to 82 and 80C. And that will take you all the way out to 287. We may or may not have traffic control out there pointing which direction to go. As much as possible, what we will be doing is pulling in people from other agencies further down the mountain to come up and help handle that, to help direct people out. But yeah, that road is not a great road. And if someone is trying to pull a long camper or a long trailer out that way, we will be pulling them off and separating them from their vehicle because there are hairpin turns and we can't afford to have somebody get stuck in there and everybody gets backed up behind them. So it's just something to be aware. It is not great. We've got one main route out and a secondary route that isn't all that safe. For that reason, we do try to pull the trigger on evacuations early. We don't want to risk getting stuck in. We don't want to risk having to go out the back way as much as we can possibly avoid it. So that's another reason during Cameron Peak that the evacuations were so much before the fire got close, because the fire was threatening the end of 73C and 74E, and we couldn't risk having people not be able to get out. Worst case scenario, we can't get out. The road's blocked, the main run, and we maybe can't get out the back for some reason. We can and we will set up safety zones inside until evacuation is possible. There are ways that we can set up places that people can be safe in the short term. We do not want to do this We want to get people out, and we will do what it takes to get people out. There isn't a large enough area inside Crystal Lakes that we could act as a safety zone for everybody, even if most people have already left. So we would have multiple locations. For example, the airstrip, the lake itself, the meadow at Selder's Causeway, Beaver Meadows. These are all areas that have large enough open space with trees that are not too close that we could burn off that meadow and safely put people in there where they would not need a shelter to be safe enough. It would not be comfortable. It's going to be hot and ashy, and just, we don't want anybody in there, but it is something we could do if we got cut off. If that's what we do, we're going to set up directions to the safety zones. We're going to tell people where to go and what to do and all that. So this isn't something you need to know. I just want to show that we have a number of places that we could set that up if that's what we need to do. Generally speaking, like I said, we don't want to do that. We want everybody out early. We're going to do everything we can to get everybody out early enough that they don't get cut off. So during an evacuation, what you're going to do, again, I keep saying it, but please stay calm. Evacuate in a timely manner. Preferably as soon as you get the voluntary evacuation notice, but if not, the minute you get a mandatory, head out. Load the most important things and get out. Follow the directions of all emergency personnel and be aware, not all of our personnel are going to be wearing turnout gear or wildland firefighting gear. Our special duty responders, they're going to be wearing civvies and a traffic control vest. So just be aware that they may not look that official, but they're still part of our evacuation process. Don't panic. Drive carefully. Don't stop until you're out. Don't pull off and say, okay, well, I need to do this, that, or the other. Just keep going. We may not have necessarily known what the evacuation center will be when you are told to evacuate. If the call that you received did not tell you where to go, then as you go out, emergency personnel should be able to tell you. Don't try to ask the people right up in here. Wait till you get further out. The other thing is, if you are signed up for LEDA, signed up for NOCO alerts, that's another way that you will be able to continue to receive notifications even when you are not here. It's another good reason to sign up there. What happens next? What happens once you're out? After you're out of the danger area, meet up with your family or your friends where you said you would when you made your plan, or call them. Let them know you're out safe. That way they aren't calling emergency services to say, I think she's still stuck up in her house or something. Let people know you're out safe. They're worried about you, and we don't want to be involved with trying to rescue someone who is already out. Do not call 911 unless you have an emergency. If you have an emergency that is going on with you right then, call 911. But if you're looking for information, they won't know, and we can't afford to tie up the phone lines trying to answer questions. The best way to get the information that you might want from calling 911 is to check in at an evacuation center, whether it's a physical check-in or an online check-in. That way your friends and family know you're out safe, the authorities know you're out safe, and that's often where you can get the information you want from. It's the best way to connect in with that. If you had to leave behind pets or livestock, tell the people at the evacuation center. We can't let you back in, but we might be able to let in people connected with Laramie Emergency Services who can potentially come do something. So let people know at that point what's going on. Do not try to come back in. Even if you know a way to get back in that you're sure isn't blocked, do not come back in. Fires are unpredictable. They can go back and forth over the same area. You thinking it is safe does not mean that that area is safe. Going back in puts you at risk, and it puts all of us at risk if we're going to try to come protect you or find you or so forth. So regardless of what you think might be safe, oh well, they don't really mean it and they evacuated us too soon, and don't go back in. Stay out. So to recap what you were doing, you are making a plan. You are packing your go box. Get started today, at least with the plan part. Be thinking about it. Mitigate your property for fire safety. Know your local conditions. Be aware of potential threats. Think about how to find out the information that I've talked about. We have some of it on our website. Things like what your fire conditions are, what information about fires that are burning in the nearby area, that sort of thing is all stuff you can usually find online. Be self-evacuating. Set up your trigger point, know when you're going to leave, and make it early. Leave as soon as evacuation order is issued, if not before. I have at times in the past when there was like High Park Fire been asked by people, well, do you think I should leave? It's like, if you have somewhere you can go, yeah. Remove yourself from the area so it's not, so you can stop worrying about whether or when you should leave, and we can stop worrying about you. The fewer people we have to try to get out of here when the time comes, the better off everybody is. Drive carefully, stay calm, stay safe. The best and safest thing you can do is get out as soon as we are threatened. And that is all. Any questions? No? All right, thank you very much for coming.